Okay, so I think we have a good group of people now. So let's just get started lah. So thank you for taking time off to join me for our third and final webinar series for this circuit breaker period. So I think we'll be taking a break to consolidate what we have done for the past 3 weeks. And for those who have missed the previous two sessions, right, I've uploaded them on YouTube. So find the links on my Facebook if you want to catch up on what I've shared earlier lah. Okay. So for this topic, same thing, today is the new launch of it. So I'll be doing two more sessions on Tuesdays and Friday. So Tuesday will be 8 p.m., Friday will be at 1 p.m. Okay. So let's just get started. So estate planning, what should I know? Okay, so the program for today. Okay, so what exactly is estate planning all about? Okay, why do I actually need to do it? Okay, of course, I will introduce this thing called the Intestate Succession Act, which is the ISA, which is the governing law for distributing someone's estate if they were to pass away without a will. Okay, next, of course, I will talk about a couple of instruments for asset distribution. For example, we have nominations, we have this thing called lasting power of attorney, advanced medical directive, and of course, the estate distribution via a will. Do you actually need a will now? All right. So finally, I'll go through a practical process flow of an estate distribution. So what are some things to look out for and the mistakes to avoid, of course. So right, and of course to sum things up, and if there's time, we'll answer some questions. If you have questions, do use the Zoom chat box or drop me a WhatsApp or Yan Lin a WhatsApp message directly so that we can answer these questions along the way. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So what is estate planning? So as the definition says over here, right, it's not the sale or rental of properties lah. Basically, estate planning is a process of planning out how a person wants his or her estate to be managed and transferred after a person's demise. Okay, so an estate basically is the net worth of a people, is the sum of the total assets, the legal rights, the interest, the entitlement to a property of any kind, less liability at a point in time lah, right? Okay, so with the understanding, right, we know what estate planning is, right? Actually, why do people do estate planning? So I think these are the four main reasons why actually people do estate planning. So number one, of course, is to eliminate all uncertainties over who gets what, the administration of the probate. So basically anything that's uncertain, we want to eliminate this. And number two is to maximize the value of the estate by reducing taxes or any expenses or liabilities lah. So actually you keep track of these things. And number three, of course, for people who have minor children or beneficiaries who are mentally or physically incapable, right, or even elderly in the family itself, okay, you give yourself time to properly plan and designate guardians for over this group of people in an event if you're not around anymore, right? Of course, last but not least, right, you get to keep track of all your assets and even looking to grow the size of this distributable assets from what it is today. So these are, I think, the four reasons why people do estate planning. So it allows you to have a very clear picture, right, of in today, right? If in an event I were to pass on, I'm very sure what will going to be happen legally and financially to my intended beneficiaries. All right. So with that, let us look at how a person is being distributed, by law lah. So this is applicable to all Singaporeans and PRs. Okay, so it actually might change according to your domicile lah. So actually, it's good to still get advice from a wills and trust specialist. So for us at GEFA, right, our wills and trust partners are Rock Wills Corporation, and so we work with them directly lah. So if even we have any questions, right, actually we need to consult them. Okay, so with that being said, right, let me touch about what this Intestate Succession Act is about. So basically, as it says over here, right, when a person passes away without a valid will, he or she is said to have died intestate. Okay, so under this circumstance, right, basically the estate is distributed according to the ISA for non-Muslims and to the Administration of Muslim Law Act for Muslims, which I'm not going to talk about today. All right. So when intestacy occurs, right, an administrator will be appointed by the court through this letter of administration to administer or distribute this estate. Okay, and for estate not more than $50,000, the families may apply to the public trustee office and with a small fee over here, right? Okay, so the rules for distribution from this ISA over here are very fixed. So let me just go through some of the governing rules to see how your estate will be divided when you pass on from ISA, right? Okay, and some thoughts over here lah. So basically, who gets what on this Intestate Succession Act? So we have a couple of rules. So number one if you are, have a surviving spouse with no children or parents or issues over here. So issues doesn't mean problems like, caused by your parents or your spouse, right? Okay, basically issues means children of the deceased. And under the ISA Act, right, actually illegitimate children are not entitled to any inheritance over here. Okay. So rule one states that, if you have a surviving spouse with no parents or no children over here, right, your spouse are entitled 100%. Okay. So, but what if you want to leave something behind for example, to your siblings? You actually cannot do that from this ISA distribution, lah, right? So number two, okay, you have a surviving spouse and parents but no children. Okay, so your spouse will receive 50%, your parents will receive 50% or 25% each, like both parents are still alive, right? Okay, so this is not ideal because I always tell clients, right, giving elderly people a huge chunk of your estate or a lot of money over here, right, might not be very ideal because they might actually squander the money. So providing someone to take care of them, of their needs, will be more appropriate. So maybe a sibling or your spouse. So in any event, right, maybe you can just give a small token sum to your parents, but a larger amount, of their daily necessities and needs, right, still lies on someone else, like, which is younger and more responsible. Okay, so the ISA same thing doesn't cater for that. Okay, so under rule number three, same thing. If now we have a surviving spouse, we have surviving children and parents. In this situation over here, right, our parents will receive nothing from the ISA definition. Okay, so your spouse will get 50% and your children will get 50%, split equally among them, right? So it's not ideal to leave inheritance, same thing to minor beneficiaries. So the money might be stuck with the public trustee office. So at the same time, if you have a teenager child or, 21, 22 years old, right? Do you think, it's safe to leave a huge sum of money to a teenager, 21, 22 years old, right? So I think it's unwise as well. So the ISA doesn't cater for that. So if you want to change, I think, yeah, we'll come to that later, lah, right? Okay. So with that, moving on, rule number four, surviving siblings, no spouse, no parents, no children. Of course, your siblings will inherit everything that you own. Okay. So another rule to take note is if one of the siblings actually deceased, right, and they have children, their children will actually step up to take over their share in this particular estate or inheritance, lah. All right. Okay. Rule number five. If let's say no parents, no spouse, no children, no siblings, who gets it? Your grandparents. So both grandparents, that means your paternal and maternal grandparents, will inherit 100% of your share, split equally among them, lah. So same thing, elderly people receiving large sum of money is not ideal, lah. So yeah, instead providing someone to take care of their needs via, for example, creating a trust for caretakers, that might be a better solution. But the ISA same thing doesn't take care of that, lah, right? So number six, so no spouse, no parents, no children, no siblings, no grandparents. Okay, all of your uncle aunties will love you because they will inherit 100% for this, both paternal and maternal side, lah. So as you can see, if this happen, it might be a massive gathering, all of aunties and uncles, lah. Okay, but just to take note, right? Unlike siblings, right? This ISA Act doesn't provide for your cousins. So if any of the uncles or aunties have passed away, right, below anyone under them actually will not step up to take their share, right? Okay. And of course, last but not least over here, right, if you have no surviving relatives, the government actually can inherit all of your estate and wealth, which is something that I think most of us don't want it to happen. Instead, actually, you can choose to donate to non-family members, you can donate to charities or even religious societies. Okay. So now that we know that this rules of ISA, the manner of distribution is very fixed and very rigid, right? What are some of the disadvantages? I mentioned some over here, but on top of that, right, if you look at this, these are the four major disadvantages over this ISA. Number one, all beneficiaries will own a part of each asset equally. So for example, a property split four ways is I would say a very big headache, right? Okay. So number two, administration procedure is more complex, takes a longer time, and so therefore you might incur higher legal fees. Okay. And of course, number three, if every child receives an equal share, if one of the child is mentally or physically disabled, right, giving money or cash, to this particular child doesn't really make sense, lah. So instead, getting someone to take care of them is a more ideal choice. And of course, last but not least, right, this administrator appointed by court, right, there is no supervision. So if the person is very slow or honestly even dishonest, right, we might have a problem over here, lah. Okay, so the bottom line for this is the estate might not be distributed in accordance to your wishes. Okay, so if you don't want to be told by law, right, who inherits your wealth, I think that's why we should look into estate planning lah. Okay, planning for who gets what in your estate. All right. Okay. So with that, let us look at some of the ways we can actually change this ISA distribution lah. So there's a couple of things over here. Okay, so if you can start at number one over here, if you look at CPF and insurance. Okay, sorry, before that, right, if you look at the default distribution, right, there's ISA and there's this thing called joint survivor. I'll come to that shortly, right? Okay, so number one, CPF and insurance, right, these are the only two assets that can be changed via a nomination. Meaning to say you can just log into online, or sign a form to set, a nomination to whoever can inherit this wealth lah. Okay, so number two over here, for joint name bank accounts or joint tenancy properties, right, be HDB or private property, right, okay, you will not be able to change this nomination because it follows a special law called the law of survivorship. Okay, so meaning to say, right, the surviving joint holder of this particular asset over here, right, will automatically inherit the share of the deceased joint holder. Okay, and of course, if you look at the rest over here, right, be your investments, any valuables or single name properties over here, right, everything, in order to change the distribution, right, you need to write a will. All right, so yeah, a will is a very important part of estate planning, as you probably would know, right? Okay. So let me talk a bit about this nomination for CPF and insurance, right? Okay, now CPF is able to do online nominations for up to 8 beneficiaries. Okay, so something to take note while doing this nomination, right, is that you need to think of who you want your beneficiaries to be and what is the proportion you wish to allocate to them. Okay, so basically you need the beneficiary's information, the name, the NRIC number, okay, ideally with a SingPass registered phone number, email address, and same thing, you need 2 witnesses for both CPF and insurance lah. So the 2 witnesses ideally have a SingPass login, they can do it immediately, and they need to acknowledge it within 7 days lah. So I just did this CPF online nomination myself. It took me less than 10 minutes lah, and my friends who are the witnesses, right, they are very surprised that it's a very simple process. The whole thing took less than 10 minutes, and the next day I received the confirmation that it's been done. So it's very fast, right? So, but unfortunately for insurance, we are still the very traditional, so you still need to submit a hard copy original form. So do contact your financial consultant if you need to do a nomination for this, all right? Okay, so the next method that we have over here is writing a will. Okay, the very common question I get from a lot of my clients is, do I actually need a will now? I'm young, I think writing a will is for old people in a way, right? Okay, so it's not true. You actually need a will if you want to distribute all your assets except insurance and CPF, right? Like your investments, your joint property, your investment property, tenancy in common, okay, and of course your bank account savings, okay. So for example, if you're holding, a very large chunk of investment, now that this whole COVID caused a financial crisis, a lot of you have, bought certain investments, things like that, or you have a tenancy in common property, okay, you want to remove all uncertainties, basically from who is receiving what, right? Then definitely you will need a will, right? Okay, so let me just give you 2 examples over here. Example number 1, is a very common arrangement nowadays. Husband and wife both buy a private property together, tenancy in common. So this is the percentage is different lah. So some is 99% to 1%. So example here is 10% owned by the husband, wife owns 90%. So this makes it easier to decouple lah, so that you can own 2 properties, right? Okay, so has 2 minor children, no mortgage insurance, and no will being done. So what is the implication if the wife passes away? Okay, so the wife's share of the property will be distributed to the husband and the children, okay, which are minors. So the husband will own 45 plus 10%, 55%, and each child will inherit 22.5% of the property. Okay, so the implication is now, as both minor child are co-owners of the house now, it will affect their future home purchase lah. They might not be able to get a BTO unless they sell off their shares to the father, which will incur stamp duties. So it's something that doesn't really make sense lah. Okay, so without a will, this might be a very complicated things in the future. Okay, number 2, we need to reapply this home loan application because one of the owner has already passed on, right? Okay, if there's insufficient cash or since there's no mortgage insurance in place, right, if the loan doesn't get approved because let's say the husband's income doesn't qualify for that loan quantum, right? The bank has the right to force sell the house. So this, from a very simple, perspective, right? No, having no mortgage insurance and having no will done, right? This will actually cause a lot of other problems, in the future, right? If one were to pass away. Okay. Example number 2. Okay, so let's say we have Tom here. He's a very savvy investor. He's single with elderly parents. He's heavily invested. He only has about $10,000 in his bank account. His investment portfolio is about $100,000 worth. So what happens if Tom passes away? So same thing, by ISA over here, right? Both elderly parents will have equal share of his assets. So $5,000 cash and $50,000 worth of investment each. Okay, so what are implications of having elderly people inheriting investments? So number one, inheriting large sum of money is not ideal. Same thing for investments. They might not have the knowledge to handle that. So in the event if they need cash, right, they might actually liquidate the investments at any value, like even selling at a loss because they don't really know what is going on, right? So writing a will, maybe to a sibling or someone whom you trust, about handling investments and handling money, right, will be a better choice so that they can actually hold the investment, make the investment grow. At the same time, has the responsibility to take care of your parents. So without a will, right, I think a lot of unknown situations might happen, and the reason we don't want that is because we have worked so hard, we have accumulated so much money, right, and we don't want this to be squandered away, right? Okay, so that's one of the few options of a will, and of course, there's much more other permutations and problems that might arise if you don't have one. So do consider writing a will now, right? Okay, so moving on. Okay, what I've discussed so far is all along is if someone passes away. Another situation that what if I don't pass away, rather I'm unconscious or I'm mentally incapacitated, I can't make decisions for myself. Okay, so what happens? This actually leads us to this topic over here, which is LPA and this AMD. So what is a LPA? So LPA basically means that you can appoint someone to act on your behalf should you lose mental capacity or be in a prolonged unconscious state. Okay, so this has been done basically with a lawyer or a doctor which is LPA certified. You're allowed to appoint 1 or 2 donors to make decisions on your behalf. So for example, say today, I'm mentally, incapacitated now. I have some investments, this person can actually choose to liquidate some of the investments to take care of my daily necessity needs. All right, so that's a LPA for you. So as of today, the charges are free. You only need to pay for the doctor or lawyer fees over here, right? Okay, so for AMD, so AMD over here is a legal document basically to decide whether beforehand when you're still sound and alive and normal, right, whether do you want life sustaining treatment, same thing in the event of terminal illness or prolonged unconsciousness. Okay, the reason why there is this directive over here by the government is because they don't want you to put family members or anyone in the matter, right, in the difficult position to decide whether should I continue to put this person on life sustaining treatment. Okay, rather you can decide for yourself, if you want, you can just immediately pull the plug and don't sustain my life in that sense, all right. So this is both are actually done government initiatives. So I think it's something that we should look at, especially the LPA part of things, right? Okay, so what we have touched on so far is basically the theoretical part of estate planning, so I hope this actually gives you a clearer and better understanding of estate planning is. So next, let's move on to look at this practical flow chart of when executing someone's estate plan. So in an estate, right, normally we start off with the knowledge, of knowing your accumulated wealth, what are the estate you want to distribute, right? So what I've done over here, right, is we have this process flow that can be categorized into 3 categories. Okay, so number 1A, we have assets. So assets basically refers to your properties, your own stay, your investments, any investments that you hold or any valuables that you hold. Okay, so A, B, and C. B stands for businesses. So businesses can be active businesses. It can be a passive business when you are a sleeping partner. All right. So of course we have C. C basically stands for cash and equivalent. So including your CPF, including your insurance payout. Okay. The difference between A and B compared to C, right, is the values of A and B will actually fluctuate up or down in accordance to market value, right? Okay, so C over here, right, the value will only remain level or go up. So meaning to say $1 when I'm alive versus $1 when I'm dead is still $1. The value doesn't diminish. Okay. So when there is an insurance payout to this portion of your assets over here, right, the C portion of things will actually go up by quite a lot, depending on the payout itself, right? So looking at that, everyone's A, B, and C are very different. So for example, a new to workforce person, right, might have a smaller A because he haven't purchased a flat yet. For a homeowner, just got married, got your own your flat with your spouse, your A will be much bigger. And of course, being a business owner and all, your B, a lot of your money and investments will be in your B. So the B is much bigger over here, right? So let us now look at the flow chart over here now. Okay, we have our A, B, and C over here. Okay, so normal person, we don't have any business, so we cross out the B over here. Okay, can be represented by three items over here. Number one, a triangle, which actually represents the estate funnel where A, B, and C will funnel through. Okay, we have a line, which represents the legal part of things, the how and the when is this estate being distributed. Of course, we have a general law over here, we mentioned earlier, intestate ISA. We have a will, which is testate. And of course, we have this special law over here. So the law of survivorship, we have nominations, we have trust, and we have corporate law, right? And last but not least, of course, we have the beneficiaries, which can be people or organizations. Okay, so if you look at this over here, right? Example. Okay, if a person is married, married to his wife, they bought their first private property together, a joint tenancy property with a mortgage insurance purchased. Both parents are still alive. I have a cash in bank of 100,000, life insurance about $1 million. I've written a simple will to distribute my assets in this percentage over here. So spouse 40%, my mother 40%, of course, my father 20%. So if in the case, if this person were to pass on, right, how does it look like? Okay, let's talk about the house first. Okay, the house A will flow through the estate portal over here, goes down to the special law and be distributed under survivorship so that the spouse will receive 100% of this particular property, right? The mortgage insurance will pay off the outstanding loan, so the spouse will inherit the house that is fully paid by herself. Although the will states that 40% goes to only 40% of it, right? But because under the special law of survivorship, the spouse will inherit 100%. Okay, so what about the cash and the CPA, the insurance payout over here? So as this person has written a will, so it be distributed under general law under the will section, go to the beneficiaries, and the spouse, the father and the mother will receive this amount as per written in the will. So this is a very simple flow of looking at things, but is this correct? The answer is no, actually no, this is not correct, not totally correct, right? Okay, why? Because looking at this over here, right, before the estate can be distributed, three parties will actually come in and have a first cut over this estate over here. So number one, of course, namely the government, creditors, and professionals. Okay, so because these three parties will have first cut in the estate, that's why, okay, so before even the funnel is going through, the C is going through the funnel over here, right, it will actually leak out to these three portions over here, shrinking your C asset class. Okay, so of course, number one, your government, which is your outstanding taxes. We have number two, your creditors, which are the banks. So your bank loans, your personal loans, your mortgage, and of course any business loan where you act as a guarantor for, they will have a first cut on your gross estate. Of course, last but not least, we have your professionals such as your doctors, lawyers, and even undertakers. So these expenses can actually accumulate to a huge amount. So even before your estate can be distributed, right, your C equivalent of things, right, will have been significantly reduced, And worse still, right, if family members need to liquidate A at a bad timing, this will result even lesser for distribution. So whatever amount is left to be distributed, right? Okay. So how can we actually manage this loss over here, so that to make sure that the intended beneficiaries still receive what you want to give them, right? Okay, so as mentioned, lesser for distribution. Okay, so how do we manage this loss? So there are two methods we can use. Number one, you save up dollar for dollar. Okay, so meaning to say if you have foreseen that this amount of tax or loans you have to cover for, right, you have to cater this amount in your bank account untouched. Okay, alternatively, you can set aside a lower amount as compared to one and hedge this risk against to prevent the C from shrinking. So an example is, for example, earlier on, mortgage insurance is a very good hedge for any outstanding mortgage loans. Okay, so looking at this slide over here, if you have done either methods, be it saving dollar for dollar or using a hedging instrument, right? Okay, we make sure that the C is back to the original amount that you have intended for your beneficiaries. So with CPG being taken care of, and the C, goes back to the original intended amount, right? So how do we actually calculate the ideal amount we want to set aside for beneficiary for their intended share? Or you might be thinking, what amount is enough for them? Of course, this is actually based on what you want and what you wish to leave for them, right? Okay, so meaning to say we can actually make this C even bigger. Okay, why? Because we want to cater for a better living expenses. We want to cater for a head start fund for your children and even for your spouse, right? Okay, so that is creating a bigger C lah. So if you want, to know a bit about more how to create a bigger C, speak to us. I think the solution is pretty simple lah. So we can actually work out something and increase this C portion of things for you earlier, right? So finally, let us look at some of the beneficiaries and how you identify them. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of the chart, right, beneficiaries can be people, can be organizations. So how do we identify these people? Okay, so the very simple or rather immediate thought over here is your family members, your spouse, your children, right? Okay, so we have family, we have spouse, we have children or even grandchildren. Okay, what if you can actually simply distribute to more of your loved ones with ease? So for example, we can include people like your parents, your siblings, and your nieces or nephews, or even that particular uncle or auntie, and cousins that you actually took care of you when you're younger, right? And of course, now we have non-family members, people like, your godchildren, your godparents, or maybe someone, even that less fortunate friend that's very close to you, that's not so financially well off. So sometimes, when we sit down and think about this entire chart, right, this chart can just grow bigger and bigger. It might not be a very big sum, maybe a small token sum, 20, 30, $50,000. I think someone will appreciate this. Okay. And of course, we have organizations, religious churches, temples, your schools, or certain societies, or any specific cause that you actually truly believe. So it will be a very happy problem if we have actually much more to give, right? So the idea is to sit down and think through your entire life till now. Who are the people that has helped you along, and you feel that there's a need to pay a certain small gratitude to, all right? So with that being said, the chart will actually look like this. Okay, so this process of estate planning over here, it doesn't require any money to do and plan out this thing over here, but it requires your time. Okay, it is a very simple yet a very powerful tool. So at last we can identify the relevant people or organizations that you feel that can be part of your beneficiaries. So everyone's chart is very different and everyone's objective is also very different, right? So it's a very personal wish of what you want or even how you want to be remembered for. Okay, so you might be remembered for someone who is very responsible, that even down to such details, right? You have everything planned out. Okay, but of course, that being said, right, I think estate planning is not for everyone. Some people might not see this as the priority. Some people feel that the inertia of doing things are very strong. Like I'm still very young, I have more important things to worry about. So estate planning is for older people, right? Okay, so but if you think about it, right, with these things happening in the recent years, right, even looking at today, COVID-19 can just happen out of nowhere and within a few months turn into a global pandemic. Okay, so we cannot predict what is going to happen tomorrow, but instead what we can do is plan for that today. So that is estate planning for you. Okay, with that, I hope the chart is clear. If you want to understand and work out a chart of your own, please do contact us. We will be more than happy to do this. If not, I think, yeah. To sum things up, right? So just a few things to recap. Number one, the ISA distribution. Do you need to change it? Do you feel that a need to change it? Okay. Number two, do up your CPF and insurance nominations. Okay, of course, do up LPA or AMD if you feel that there's a need to. And of course, write your will uh, for all assets except your CPF and the insurance lah. All right. Okay. Keeping track of your A, Bs, and Cs, I think is very important. And increase your C if there's a chance lah. By any instrument, insurance, or even increasing your cash savings, things like that. Okay. And of course, managing your liabilities is very important lah. So for mortgage insurance is particularly important in this point in time lah, right? So for multiple asset owners, right, make sure that most of your assets, or in fact all of your properties, do have a mortgage insurance. Get it covered for lah. So this will not be a problem for the person inheriting it. Okay, so any outstanding loans has to be catered for lah. Okay, and of course, if you have any special needs, that you need to be addressed, please speak to your financial consultant, your estate planner, or if you need for us to introduce, right, we are more than happy to introduce Rock Wills to you. So of course, last but not least, right, I think estate planning basically means protecting your loved ones, giving them a peace of mind. So start planning your estate today. Okay, so I think with that, this is the end of my very short informative sharing. I hope you understand a bit better. I'll be sending the slides out, probably tomorrow or the day after. So for your own reference, lah. Of course, if you have any questions, do speak to us, speak to your own financial consultant. Okay, if not, I think yes, we do have time for Q&A. So if any of you have any questions, please do let me know. Let me check my phone for a quick one. Okay, so far there's no questions. I don't see any in the chat box. Okay, but if you have any questions, please feel free to text us anytime. What I've quoted the examples here are pretty straightforward, very simple cases, but when it comes to a real life situation over here, right, it can be very difficult, and very tedious. Even just now when we're having dinner over here, my mother-in-law was sharing with us her story, right? This very wealthy friend of hers stays in a landed property. The owner, which is the mother, became mentally incapacitated. Okay, and most of them are in a very financially tight position, but they're staying in a very big landed property house. So they can't sell the house because there's no LPA done. The mother is unconscious. They all have to suffer, while living in that very big house. So until the day the mother actually passes on and the house being distributed to the children, right? Then they actually manage to sell off the house. So things like that do happen on a day-to-day basis, and it might not happen immediately, but I'm sure you have heard stories about, having this, having that, so hopefully, nothing happens to us. So okay, I don't have any questions for now. So okay, so same thing. I'll be conducting this same session on Tuesday night and Friday 1 p.m. So do tune in. If you find this session informative, very simple to digest, please share the link to all of your friends who might be interested in this particular topic. All right. So that being said, we have yes. So Will and Legacy is our partner, or actually my partner. We work directly with them. So do check out their website. Some of the things that I'm not unsure of, I always go back to them and ask and consult them. So they are the professionals in that sense. On top of that, my usual Facebook page, my comprehensive financial planning page. So if you have any questions, please do contact us. Feel free to talk to us if you have questions. You want to draw up a chart on your own, we can do that lah. Okay. So if not, that's what I have for today. So thank you very much for your time. Okay, sorry, one question popped in, right? How about online will writing services? Okay, online will writing services, I think there's a couple online which are free of charge. Number one, I would assume it is a pretty standard templated kind of a will writing lah. If you are writing something very simple, I think it's probably is doable. It's okay as long as you write, key in everything and write nicely. Get two winners to sign it. I think that's fine. But most of the time, I will recommend someone getting a lawyer or estate planner to write a will, so that there's no way to contest this will, like if there's a chance that, if there's a situation that the contest happens, right? So if you're a bit, don't be so cheapskate lah. You are talking about distributing asset and all, right, get a proper person to do it lah. So I think the online will writing, yes, for a simple one probably is okay, but I think to a certain point we still need to engage a professional to do it for us lah, right? Okay. So no more questions. I think once again, thank you everyone for joining me today. So yes, do get more people to join coming Tuesday night lah. All right. So with that, I will end my session today. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Luckily, I haven't exited. William. Okay. A simple will. Yeah.